Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleague Jim Patterson. Jim is today's presenter and will discuss the topic of Learn how strategic portfolio management is the evolution of project portfolio management. This webinar is a new addition to our series of strategic portfolio management webinars, so if you enjoy this video, feel free to watch the others available on our channel and look towards the next installment, which we'll be releasing soon. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks, Robert, and welcome everybody. We're excited about this topic. It really is the direction of where portfolio management is going, and it truly is an evolution. And we'll talk about that being an evolution as opposed to a replacement of what we've been doing in the past. So let's get started. Traditional project portfolio management over the last few decades, has really advanced the capabilities and effectiveness of organizations across the board. In general, we've gotten better with more clarity and consistency of project management activities across our entire portfolio of projects. We've helped define and pursue clearer objectives for what we want to do and communicate those. Our planning has been more realistic and complete. We've been able to, bring in the allocation of resources and the potential optimization of those into the mix. And just overall, just better visibility and reporting around all those things. And I would say through that generation of PPM, we began to see the vision and the possibilities of strategic alignment of projects and how important that might be as a next step. Now, strategic alignment of projects alone is important. The Gartner group states that, executing strategy in a digital age requires connecting the shared objectives of the business strategists and those executing the change and measuring the true business value. And that this is an important thing for us to do to succeed as an organization. And they see this alignment as a set of processes that involve the people, the strategy, and the operations of the business, as well as a system that has strategy development, planning, and then organizational alignment and all the planning and execution around that. So strategy and execution together breeds us better success. Now, this strategic alignment is really just the beginning of what we're going to talk about here today. Strategic portfolio management in general, as defined broadly by Gartner, is a set of business capabilities, processes, and supporting portfolio management technology. And this is beyond just aligning just strategies. It says that our business leaders, our enterprise program management offices or portfolio management offices, and our IT leaders and others that execute need to support the enterprise-wide strategy to execution alignment and then an adaptation of that in the way that we execute our business. So an SPM, which is the acronym for Strategic Portfolio Management, should support the clear definition of those business strategies and then also factor in alignment to other aspects or elements, such as business capabilities that we have, current investments that we have, existing programs, digital and physical products or assets that we have that are required, the applications that we have that might be dependent or need to support what we're doing, and the projects themselves, meaning it becomes much more multifaceted in strategic portfolio management than just the project portfolio itself or the project portfolio aligned with the strategies. The idea here is that the solution must define and prioritize those strategies, but also take into context not only the initiatives in the project and maybe the priorities of those, but things like the core IT assets that are required or the core assets of the organization that are required to become successful. So it supports three key stakeholders, from the leadership who sets the direction and the strategies, the IT management who owns the critical assets in a digital infrastructure, and then there's the execution teams that plan and deliver the projects themselves to help reach those goals and achieve those objectives. Now, the key attributes of strategic portfolio management are threefold. In order to succeed at this, we need to have portfolio alignment, which we've been discussing a little bit so far. Also make value-driven decision-making, not personality-driven or some other factor-driven decision-making. And also have ongoing portfolio flexibility so that we can flex with changes in the environment, the marketplace, and even internal changes that happen. And that we need to be effective at all three of these dimensions to really have effective strategic portfolio management. Now, in this shift to SPM to help enable that organizational agility, what's driving some of this is the increasing pace of change that we as organizations face. And there's environmental turbulence out there, and the changes out there, whether it be economic, whether it be marketplace, whether it be technology itself, whether it be unforeseen things like the pandemic. These cause strains for the organization and really makes paramount the need for agility in organizations that will drive the strategic portfolio leaders to use these techniques and these approaches to help sustain during these turbulent times. Now, the opportunity here is, as Gartner found, only 16% of organizations that they found to date are highly effective at all three key attributes of strategic portfolio management. So there's a huge opportunity for us across the board as a marketplace to improve. They also found that taking a more fragmented approach that doesn't bring all these things together into context can lead to excessive costs due to conflicting priorities, redundant processes and work, and even misaligned goals, so that we're not all rowing in the same direction. And also, sometimes in this customer-centric world, sometimes we let the reaction to supporting the customers drive us away or unintentionally pull us away from our strategic objectives and where we're trying to go overall. We get so busy trying to keep things going that we don't focus on where we're strategically trying to drive the organization for tomorrow. Now, some recommendations here is that, to achieve better business outcomes in SPM, you must include the enterprise strategy in your prioritization process. Not just do we align with it, but it's a factor in as we prioritize. Sometimes we have other prioritization measures on things like ROI and other aspects of those types of things. But whether or not it aligns with a strategy, or do we have the business capabilities of the applications in there, need to be factored into an overall prioritization decision which factors in all those different trade-offs. We also need to, and Gartner's also found that the rise of the EPMO, the Enterprise Program Management Office, is supplanting the old traditional, more departmental or business unit PMOs, because we need organization now with a broader purview that can see broadly across the organization to adapt the scenarios and trigger actions based upon what they're seeing in the organization and outside of the organization, so that we can respond. And we need to resolve the emergent business disruptions by investing in the strategic portfolio management technology and processes, so we can support this ongoing change and keep the course going successfully as we try to achieve the outcomes we're looking for. Now, some trends and some assumptions based upon Gartner's survey is that by 2025, 70% of digital investments will fail to deliver the expected business outcomes due to the absence of a strategic portfolio management approach. They also found that by 2024, the projection is half of EPMOs will have the ability to rapidly sense and orchestrate changing conditions and become the central nervous system of the enterprise. They'll have more of the finger of the pulse across the board and help guide the organization and make the recommendations that are needed. By 2024, 80% of digital businesses will integrate SPM and execution technologies and adopt new frameworks to achieve valued business outcomes using those approaches and technologies. And then, interestingly enough, in this day and age, with where we're headed on, just this whole topic, 50% of portfolio offices will include sustainability metrics in their portfolio management, their portfolio dashboards. And we see like these ESG scores and other things that organizations are driving towards and publishing today support that prediction. Now, this is coming. It's here and it's evolving, and organizations are implementing this, even if it's in the early stages. And as I mentioned, this is designed to enhance or evolve our PPM practices into the next generation. It doesn't replace what we've been doing in the past. It enhances all those types of things. But as you can see, in the hype cycle that Gartner puts out, it's in that innovation trigger in that early stages, and it will have a number of years of growth as we as organizations and as a marketplace adopt to this. So just be apprised that this is here and this will evolve, and people are using this today. Now, we're going to talk about OnePlan today. And OnePlan as a solution is a strategic portfolio management solution. it helps you get on the path to adopting these concepts and adopting these frameworks and methodologies as you go through. The strategy piece is really designed for the business leaders who are going to define the strategy, but not just to align it with projects, but really build a plan that you can execute that strategy on and track that plan to make sure that we're on track to deliver the outcomes and achieve the objectives that we're looking for. On top of that, we have the execution leaders who need to see to fruition the projects and initiatives that the organization decides to embark upon and see them to successful conclusion and be in alignment with the strategy that the business leaders lay forth for the entire organization. And then all those other assets, the IT leaders in a digital organization owns the applications and the technologies that we may be dependent on or may have to be upgraded or modernized to support the outcomes that we're looking for. All of these things are interrelated, and OnePlan factors all these things into the equation. So if we think about OnePlan, we're going to talk about where we have strategic planning, and we have the ability to put a strategic plan in this case, objectives and a key results approach that allows us to execute on a strategic plan. And that capability exists in OnePlan. We also have the full portfolio management and bottoms-up execution capabilities within the OnePlan solution itself as well. So we can manage those things as we traditionally have in the past, but even with some great enhancements that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But those things should be interrelated with one another and factored into the equation and be part of an overall SPM solution. OnePlan provides you the ability to do that. Now, the OnePlan modules in the PPM and SPM capabilities that we have there, outside of the strategic plan, is to be able to model a portfolio and have portfolio visibility in a flexible framework, whether they be traditional list views or more agile boards for the portfolio that people might have in more agile tilting organizations, or even roadmaps that are very popular within productized organizations as well. Same data, but different perspectives, as well as things like what if scenario analysis we'll talk about here today. Consistent resource capacity planning across the board, no matter how these projects are being worked, to be able to look at, well, do we have the capacity and the wherewithal to deliver the things we're committing to? Detailed financial planning with as detailed a cost category structure that you might want to track, capital versus expense, or even tracking different cost types as budget versus revised forecast versus actuals, for example, or even forecasting or projecting revenue or benefits. And then on the execution side, OnePlan itself has its own planning tools. It has a waterfall planning tool on the left-hand side, and we have the agile planning tool on the right-hand side that allows us to form backlogs, sprint-based plans, and work with things in more agile boards within the tool itself. And that all can be done in OnePlan by itself, though we do have a connector technology that allows us to leverage our commitment to other tools that may be in place. For example, Microsoft Project or Azure DevOps for Agile, or maybe even a Jira. The idea is that OnePlan can do these things in and of itself, but supports what you might be using today. On top of that, just team member collaboration coming into the mix to be able to get our finger on the pulse to where things really are at, having team members have one place to go to submit status on their work or submit a timesheet and understand what requires their attention. Now, we're going to talk about today about, as I mentioned, beyond just the strategic alignment, there's other aspects that need to be factored in a strategic portfolio management environment. For example, the business objective or the strategy might be something like we need to grow revenue by 15%. Now, the tangible key results that we need to track and measure in order to see if we're making tangible progress towards achieving that business objective are all related to the success of that business objective. Now, those key results then also might be tied to some enterprise architecture components. For example, a business capability like order processing is something we might have to assess and evaluate and potentially update in order to achieve what we want to set out as the business objective. Now, that business capability may also be dependent on applications such as like an order system or a picking system or you name it that is interrelated to its success, and that has to be evaluated and assessed as well as part of the decision-making process or as part of the success of what needs to be tackled. And then the initiatives that we actually decide to embark upon, are related to all of those things, such that we have to factor in, if we're going to look at this holistically and see all the things that are impacted by the decisions we make, we can't ignore any one of these aspects or treat it something off to the side that may not be of impact. So OnePlan has the ability to build and track the strategic plan in and of itself, those objectives and those key results. It has the ability to identify and create a portfolio of enterprise architecture elements, such as your products, your business capabilities, your applications, etc., and have that be related as well as a traditional project portfolio or even a non-traditional adaptive project portfolio that leverages multiple methodologies and multiple tool sets. So OnePlan gives you the ability to do all of this within the solution itself. Now, if you're going to have all these interrelations, you have to have some way to realistically provide a good visual on how these things interrelate as you assess these things. And OnePlan provides you a visualizer capability that allows you to look at how all these elements interrelate. And we're going to demonstrate that to you today. For example, your objectives might be related to key results, which might be related to projects and or epics, which in turn might be related to products, applications, or business capabilities. And as we assess whether or not to do something or stop doing something, what would be impacted should we do that? And this gives us a good picture for those types of things, as well as how a project is related to all these different elements as well. So those complex interrelations can be boiled down and looked at in a very consumable or human consumable way. We also have reports that also give you those same types of relationships as well. So a lot of flexible ways to get that visualization, so it's something that we can consume and use to make decisions. Now, the OnePlan does all these things within the application itself. OnePlan does have its own connector platform called OneConnect. And in that, we connect to a variety of genres of tools. For example, we talked about maybe agile software development tools like a Jira or an Azure DevOps, or a project or work management tool like a Microsoft Project, for example. Or maybe there's financials or ERP like Oracle or SAP or Dynamics, service management tools, etc. But in this area of strategy and enterprise architecture, for example, that are the net value adds of moving into strategic portfolio management, if you are already committed to other tools, we're looking at things like the new Viva goals from Microsoft, for example, we can connect to those things and use those as sources of that information, but fold it into your overall strategic portfolio management process. On top of that, OnePlan is built for the Microsoft Cloud with a fused user experience, and I'm going to demonstrate this to you today strictly in a browser, so you don't need anything else. But there's a lot of organizations that are immersed in other things that they're doing or other environments in the Microsoft Cloud that they're working on. And just be aware that OnePlan is designed to be consumed from within Power Apps. It is also an authorized Microsoft Teams application, so you can actually use OnePlan in its entirety right from within Microsoft Teams, augmented by the Teams collaborative capabilities. And then Azure DevOps, we can not only connect to it from a data perspective, but you can actually access the OnePlan capabilities right when you're in Azure DevOps. And the same holds true when you're in Dynamics or when you're in SharePoint. The key would be optionally, you can actually stay working in the tools that you work in every day and become more productive by doing fewer episodes of task switching during the course of your day. The main thing is we also really promote leveraging what you already own. As I mentioned, if you have execution tools that you're already married to, if you have, other things that you're using that you don't want to jettison, you don't have to rip and replace everything. OnePlan will help you leverage what you already own, especially things that you own in the Microsoft Cloud. So with that, I want to go to a demonstration of these capabilities and show you how that will come into play. So I'm showing you OnePlan directly in a browser. And I think where I'll start is I'll start with the strategic plan piece of OnePlan, in that when we build a strategic plan using objectives and key results, and I'll expand this out such that we can see a hierarchy where we have different objectives or strategies, like launch new products successfully. And there's supporting or associated key results that are tangible measures that will help us gauge whether or not we're making physical progress towards the achievement of that particular objective. As we go through something like this and we drill into, say, a particular objective, that objective has different data we might capture around this. Now, we have some templates to get you started, but any data that you choose to capture around this objective is completely up to you. For example, You may have a time frame on this. For example, it might be this quarter's objective or this year's objective, and there could be a series of those. You could have objectives that are in different states of proposed or active or whatever your methodology would need. And key data points that you capture around that objective, like what it is, what's the state, what status is it in? Is it aligned with certain business units or other goals or things like that? And the idea there would be, any description of that, prioritization of this, and then more importantly, what associations does it have with this tangible key results that we're looking for? And those key results with a current metric of how we're progressing on that will give us an idea of how well we're doing in possibly achieving these. Now, the key results that are subordinate to this that you saw in the portfolio view of the strategy plan would also have its own capabilities and metrics and data around that. So for example, you might have a metric in here that might be a number, it might be dollars, it might be percentages, or maybe no tangible numeric metric at all. And for example, a target number of saying we wanted to create 20 customer case studies and the target number is 20, and we're tracking the current number and the current metric towards that. We might be looking at this, and we might be associated with certain ideas in our system or associated projects that we have in our portfolio, as well as I'll show you a little bit later on, some of the enterprise architecture elements, like are there any other applications that this is dependent upon or related to, or any other products that we're working on that are related to. And these types of things are important to understand the things that are impacted by the things that we're trying to do here, or the efforts and the elements that are supporting us being able to successfully create those 20 customer case studies. Now, if we go to the enterprise architecture aspects of this and we look at that, OnePlan gives you the ability to create portfolios of different enterprise architecture elements. So for example, in this limited case, I've got a set of products that we're working on that are part of our architecture. We have certain business capabilities that are here. We have value streams that we've identified. And we even have applications that are part of the mix for an application portfolio. Each of these is really a portfolio in and of itself and can have its own data and attributes associated with it. For example, if I drill into a particular application here, the data we keep around this is much different than we looked at, for example, with our objectives and key results. For example, we may have a whole life cycle of a application that we want to support. There may be an overall description of this. There might be an application vision and mission and strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. We might have a prioritization about this or a timeline for its life cycle. We might have an application budget, and even things like what objectives and what capabilities and what value streams and initiatives this application is associated with. So once again, these things are all interrelated. Even having things subordinate to this, for example, you can even have a work plan, for example, for a application. And this might allocate some other lifecycle things. For example, we might be planning out the different releases that we have across this application as we roll out different releases or upgrades. We might have a backlog of items that are supporting this. And in an agile approach, we might have features and user stories that we're contemplating or going to embark upon in order to make sure that this application stays current. And the idea here is that we can factor in all the dimensions that we'd like to on this application portfolio item, as well as even track financials around this. If we have costs and other things that we want to track to have overall total cost of ownership information in here regarding those applications. Now, how does this relate to the overall project portfolio? Well, let me go there. If we're in the project portfolio itself, what I'm looking at right here is just a flat portfolio that is looking at all the different projects that we might be working on or initiatives. In this case, I have different plan types in here. I have projects which we've identified as being more waterfall type projects, and epics, which are more agile type projects. Also notice that we have different icons on the left side here. This allows us to use a variety of different execution tools to support each of these items. Notice I have some that are using Azure DevOps. I got some that are using, Microsoft Project or Office 365 Planner. And some are using a combination of both Project and Azure DevOps and connected to team sites for that collaboration that we talked about earlier on. The thing is that we have a lot of flexibility, and notice we also have projects with no icons at all, meaning OnePlan is fully capable of doing this without being connected to the other tools as well. So if I drill into a specific project, for example, and I go into the details of this project, notice that once again, this detail page is different than what we saw in the other elements from the strategy or from the application, for example, within the enterprise architecture. We can have different plan types that have their own project life cycles or phasing or gates. The data or metadata we categorize or characterize these things with. You might have a business case or an idea that some business case information came over from, as well as other things like project prioritization and snapshots of financials and schedule and effort and those types of things. But as I open up this enterprise architecture area, notice that this particular project is associated with 4 different key results. It also has a percentage split if we want to do allocations based on the sharing of cost, for example. And that percentage split may drive how much dollars is allocated or cost is allocated to those specific elements. And a capability to do those type of allocations exist. We're associated with 3 different applications that are related to this particular effort, as well as 2 different products, 1 value stream. And the idea is that this flows from this direction up to those elements, or from those elements down to here, all interrelated in the way that we see fit. Now, not only the associations that are here, but all the things you would traditionally want to find in a in a portfolio management solution are here as well. For example, in a work plan, you have a work plan and a schedule in here. And as I had mentioned before in there, I have a waterfall-based plan here that allows me to build right here in OnePlan a waterfall plan from templates and other ways. It allows me to show this with or without a Gantt chart representation on demand. It also allows me to choose whether or not I want to build that plan here or possibly have it come from something like a Microsoft project that this one is particularly linked to, but that's optional. The other aspect in here is that we have other work types. So for example, if you have an Agile project or an Agile component, and this particular project has an element of both. And so in this case, I have a backlog in here that is actually can be built right here in OnePlan. I've got a list of features and user stories and even a sprint-based plan of which sprints these things are associated with. And this could either be built directly here in OnePlan, whereas in this case, you might have it connected to an Azure DevOps to bring that data in from the backlog that's being managed over in Azure DevOps, or it could be a Jira. Optionally, you can use those tools, but it can all be done right within here. We can also look into a resource plan. So as we're going to talk in a little bit about factoring into our prioritization decisions, do we have the wherewithal or the bandwidth to support the things we are committing to? This gives me the ability to build a resource plan, whether it be early on with generic resources or eventually replacing them with named individual resources, and the ability to plan in terms of either hours, FTEs, or percentages of allocation at a simple, toggle in here. And the ability to also find over-allocated resources that are shown here and potentially find potential replacements and find resources based on criteria that allow us to determine, are there people in here who might have the ability to do a replacement and replace over-allocated resources on particular projects as we do that planning and reconciliation. We also have the ability to look at financial plans and actually track those as we see fit. In this case, I'm looking at a comparison between what we originally budgeted and what the revised forecast looked like and how those are offset. We have labor costs that can be coming in directly from that resource plan we just showed you, as well as tracking non-labor costs and even bringing those in from our financial system should we want to do that. All the elements that you'd want within your PPM solution and within individual project can be modeled right here within OnePlan. Now, if I go back out to the portfolio and I go look at a couple things. One is that resource planning that I showed you within the project that does get aggregated into an overall resource plan, not just on a project by project basis. So for example, I could look at resource plans and have my resources aggregated by business unit, for example. And here at this level, I can easily see Jack Barker is very much overloaded, and it's because he's on way too many projects over too many way period of time. And this is all rolling up from the individual project levels. And that same reconciliation capability of finding resources to replace different resources are available to us to make those changes at any given point in time. So the idea here is that a resource manager who has a more broad view and not just a project single specific view can do this analysis and that data entry as they see fit. Now back to the project portfolio. As we look before at this flat list of projects, we can also build project portfolio hierarchies. And for example, if I wanted to come in here and look at a particular different view and say, give me a portfolio summary, I could come in and say, here's a portfolio level, which has programs within the portfolios. And then within those programs, there are different projects and epics within those, all rolling up into entities that are programs that can have their own budgets and their own plans and all those different types of things. Or we could look at some other combination views within this portfolio. And that might be, in this case, I'd look at this project prioritization view that factors in your applications and your key results. So for example, if I look at associated applications in here, and I look at associated key results, it's beyond just saying, what is the prioritization score that we came up with based on some formula of how important these projects are in relation to one another. It also has us factor in what applications need to be considered as we choose this project. Do we have associated key results that are important, right, that might still be proposed or on hold? And do we have to actually get going on those in order to succeed at achieving those objectives or those key results? So for example, if I went into the associated key results and I tried to filter on a particular one, and I said, let's see, I'll say achieve an NPS or a net promoter score of 9 from our customers. So now I'm now filtered down to just the portfolio items or projects and epics that are related to these particular associated key results. And in that, I can basically see all these projects are active. How are they progressing? Where do they fit in this? If some of them were not on track, or some of them were still on hold and needed to be activated, I can figure that out from this particular place and use that instead of just the prioritization score that we have traditionally looked at, as well as how well we're strategically aligned with our strategies that we've outlined in our strategic plan. Now, in this regard, we can also look at this from a prioritization perspective as well. If I go to more of a all-encompassing prioritization view, this one might give me a view here where I take a look at the prioritization scores and the rankings of these things, and I can rank them accordingly. But I can also do what-if analysis. And this what-if analysis would allow me to come in and say, given all the projects that are in the mix here, and if I did them all in the FY22 budget that I have, it looks like if I did everything that I have on my plate here today, and this is here's some, let me zoom this in so we can see the timelines a little bit better. I have more dollars that would be required than is in my budget, or definitely for the year I have more than it's within my budget. So for example, I might say, we need to possibly not do maybe one of these proposed or on hold projects and let this re-rack and get closer to the dollar value that we need. We might come in here and say, let's figure out which one of these things we don't do and see as we can reconcile and get closer to achieving that budget. And here I'm getting very close to my budget. And I could also do this also in conjunction with saying, maybe there's a proposed project that's in the mix that we're thinking about still doing, but maybe we have to delay it a little bit in order to factor that into the mix and get this closer to our number. And then we can save these as what-if scenarios without having impacted our real data. So the idea is we can do some reconciliation to make sure that we have the bandwidth and we're working on the right things as we go through that prioritization process. And without going through it in total, we can do the same type of what-if analysis, saying with this selection and deselections that we made, what resource requirements are there? And do we have the resources to do this? And I can see right now there's a lot of red in my resource plan right now saying this resource plan may or may not be doable based upon what we see here. And maybe we might have to deselect other things, for example, maybe to get this into line in order to say, okay, now we got something that we can do. And once again, I could save this as an incremental scenario as well and review that for decision-making support. Now, we talked about the complex interrelations of having strategic portfolio management and having all those different dimensions of allocations and associations that we have. And to be able to visualize those things, it's important for us to look at these. So if I go back to look at more of a portfolio summary view, and let's say for an entire portfolio, I want to look at the visualization around that. So let's say this cloud and mobile first portfolio. Let me go down to the reporting that I have for that particular element, and let me go and select visualize. Now in that visualization, there may be dependencies. In this case, there's not, but we do have interrelations in what we call the runway. And this basically gives me a view of saying, for this portfolio, I have these programs that are related. I have these projects and epics that are related to this one. But then I also have these key results and objectives in the strategic plan that are related to these. And I can see these very succinctly and how those interrelate with one another across the entire portfolio that I'm keyed on at this particular point in time. Now, we could look at it from the opposite perspective. For example, I could go up to my strategic plan that we looked at the outset of this demonstration, and I could say, let me look at the objective of launch new products successfully. And if I go into the reporting and say, help me visualize the relationships there, I can see that there are some dependencies that exist, but I can also see that there are relations now of this objective to the key results, which in turn have some relations to the projects and epics, which then in turn are related to the other enterprise architecture elements of products, applications, and capabilities. This is just a couple of examples. You can get very different dimensional views of this with this dependencies and runways view in the visualizer. I would also say that we can support this through reporting if you have people that want to get to this stuff from reporting. I'll give an examples of some things that we've been discussing here today. For example, the key results in this portfolio, you could have a running tally in a report for your leadership, for example, of how we're doing and whether or not we have some cautionary areas on the progress of these key results, or look at them by different things like how we're doing on the ones that are related to finance, for example, and be able to filter those things very readily. We could go look at some things like key result status and saying how we're doing on our key results. And we can see that we're doing very well on some of them, but some of them are lagging behind that may require some attention. We may want to drill into the project portfolio to see what we're doing to help see that this is not the case for the long term. And then on the association side of things, you can basically see associated things like associated applications and be able to look at, say, these pie chart views and say, you know, what application is related to which projects and programs, et cetera. You know, what's associated to the different projects that we're committed to, products, excuse me, we're committed to, as well as things like, you know, what objectives is everything aligned with, and see that we are aligned to different things across the way. So different visualizations and things that we have. So just a sampling of the types of things that we can do in here. So hopefully that gave you a good overview of all the different dimensions that we talked about that are involved in strategic portfolio management and how OnePlan can address them. So with that, I will go back to our presentation for some closing statements and summarizing some potential next steps. So we talked about today how traditional PPM has provided significant advances for organizations, and that strategic portfolio management is now expanding on PPM and adapting for the modern digital business. It's not replacing, it's evolving. And SPM brings together business capabilities, investments, programs, digital and physical products, other assets, applications, and projects into a common picture for us, and brings us other dimensions to factor into decision making. OnePlan provides the most complete set of SPM capabilities on the Microsoft platform. And OnePlan provides a variety of solution templates for different capabilities and customer needs that you may have. Also, as we talked about, OnePlan integrates with other solutions and tools and with teams for content and collaboration so that you can make the most of what you've already invested in or what you've invested time and effort in. Now, OnePlan is passionate about this stuff. We have a number of different Microsoft Gold certifications, but we are passionate about project and portfolio management. Evidence of that is that we've been named Microsoft's Global Project and Portfolio Management Partner of the Year 3 of the last 4 years. It was a finalist the 1 year we weren't. And we were awarded that again just recently last month for 2022. And we get recognized in this fashion by the analysts like Gartner, Infotech Research, Scaled Agile Inc., etc. So just want to let you know, this is not something we do on the sideline. We're not a general systems integrator. We're focused on this discipline. If you want to trial some of this stuff, we have a strategic portfolio management template available up on AppSource that you can get for your own trial purposes. And we're happy to chaperone you and guide you through that, give you an overview, and help you get the most out of that trial experience. So please feel free to take advantage of that and reach out to us and engage with us. We can also help you if you're not ready to do that. Just talk to you about what it would take to get you from where you're at today into a solution like this. We'll have a discussion with you about your current use of tools and solutions, assess kind of the requirements and the desired future state you'd like to get to, and then really help you determine what the best approach or what a roadmap might look like for you. And total cost of ownership might include a lot of investment you've already made. It just may be an incremental investment. So we're happy to assess that for you. So the free trial is available to you, the roadmap workshop, but if you're not ready for either of those things yet, we gave a generalized demonstration today. So reach out to us and we're happy to schedule a personalized one-on-one demo that focuses more on your requirements and use cases and do that for you on a personal one-on-one basis. Just reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai or look for more research on more information about us on www.oneplan.ai. I'd like to thank you for being here today. We do want to engage with you, and we are invested in success, and by that we mean we're invested in your success as a customer. You can reach out to the general contact line if you like, or email, or if you want to reach out to me directly, I'm happy to get you the information you want or get you in touch with the right people to support you, depending on where you're at geographically, etc. I really appreciate you guys all being here today. We'll get a copy of the slides and a link to the recording of the presentation, and we really do hope to engage with you. So thank you all and have a great day.